So there's been a lot of talk about Cybertruck and a lot of different people coming up with variations of Cybertruck, CyberVans, CyberSUVs. Well, I wanted to have a fun time with this video. Let's talk about some different kinds of variations we can see of Cybertruck, what we've seen, what doesn't work, what would work, what might be really interesting, and a couple of really out there ideas I have that I haven't seen anybody talking about. You ready? Let's go.
So I present to you the Cybertruck.
Two of the most popular ideas I've seen are a CyberVan that was put forward by Hyperchange's Gali, and another idea was the CyberSUV. I don't like either of these two ideas. The problem is that they violate one of the fundamental reasons why Cybertruck is the way it is. Cybertruck is designed with an upside-down triangle, a triangle laying on its hypotenuse. This relates to how bridges are made to make them sturdy, to make them rigid. And if you take away that rigid triangle, then you lose a lot of the benefits of why Cybertruck is made the way it is. It looks like nice ideas, it's interesting, particularly with the CyberVan. I don't think that's necessary. I think this is the idea to replace, the Amazon Prime vans that we see driving around, the UPS vans. Those vans are already pretty efficient. Put an electric powertrain on them. I don't think you need to use the Cybertruck architecture for that particular type of service. I think that's out of the bounds of what Cybertruck is designed for. It's not necessary. It's not where it needs to go. So two ideas that I think make a lot of sense within the Cybertruck architecture are a smaller CyberPickupLite and a CyberCUV. I think both of these ideas make sense. They work within the same triangle architecture. Just make them smaller. Cybertruck is really big, 230 inches long. It's almost 20 feet long. It really won't fit in most garages, and Elon has talked about making it a little bit smaller while still maintaining the functionality. But there's another level we can go. We can take it down to the size of about the 1990 Mazda B pickup with the regular cab. So the CyberPickupLite that I propose is on that scale with roughly those dimensions. Only one row of seating fits maybe 2 or 3 people. 2 people generally. Could you squeeze a third person in? Yeah. But not as wide as Cybertruck, so that it wouldn't be really comfortable for 3 people for a long period. This is just designed for that 1 or 2 people who are contractors doing small jobs where they don't need the huge bed. Still a decent sized bed, because that's what you're getting rid of the rear row. And narrower, so it doesn't need to be as wide as Cybertruck. It doesn't need to be as long as Cybertruck. It's easier to fit in a garage. It'll use a lot less juice because it's carrying a lot less weight. Maybe you wouldn't be able to fit as many batteries in. Maybe you'd only have one motor. This is just a utility truck. Could you make a more aggressive version of it? Sure, but that's one idea. Same thing with CyberCUV, roughly the same size, maybe a little bit longer. Comparable to, let's say, the Acura RDX in dimensions. With the CyberCUV, you would have 2 rows, you'd fit 5 people. It wouldn't really be wide enough to fit 6 comfortably. I suppose you could push it, but that's not the idea. Really, you're mostly going to have 4 people in it, 2 in the front, 2 in the back. And of course, you'd have the fold-down rear seat. You'd be able to get a lot of cargo in there, because when you fold down the rear seat, you'd have a lot of room back there. So this would be a really good CUV concept, similar in size to Ford Escape, that type of, or the Honda CR-V. Again, it would be smaller, less weight. And another concept in here with CyberPickupLite and CyberCUV, I think you could go with a thinner steel. Cybertruck is made with 3-inch stainless steel that is bulletproof for low caliber, handgun caliber rounds. I don't think that's necessarily needed, and if you go to a smaller size, you may be able to get away structurally with a thinner steel. So maybe you go down to 2.5 or 2 millimeter steel instead of 3 millimeter steel. That saves weight. That means you'll be able to go longer distances on a less battery. You're going to be able to fit less battery in because they're narrower, they're not as long, there's not as much room for battery. With CyberCUV, you probably would have a dual motor version to be able to have all-wheel drive. I think this is a really exciting idea that could be done. This isn't the big ideas, but this seems like a simple step that Tesla could make that could deliver more functionality with the Cyber platform if Tesla decides to go that way, if the platform, the design becomes popular and people demand it. As many people have talked about, the manufacturing costs of just folding steel versus having stamping machines really makes a lot of sense. So I'd love to see this CyberCUV and Cyber Pickup concept, see if we can make that work. It would be great. Okay, so I'm going to go off the hook with this next idea. How about CyberTank? For military applications, there's a lot of applications we could see with Cybertruck, but we wouldn't be limited to the size of Cybertruck. Tanks are much bigger than cars, much bigger than ordinary pickup trucks. So how about if you made it much bigger? Made it 300 inches long, you made it 120 inches wide. So in the tank format, this is something where you'd be able to put weapons on it, guns, who knows, cannon, use this as a fighting machine, much more nimble, much more aggressive, much more able to occupy terrain and move around terrain than typical tanks, which are going to be slower and harder to maneuver. And they're going to use, tanks use a ton of fuel, a ridiculous amount of fuel. CyberTank would be much more efficient and much faster, much more nimble, much more able to do a lot of missions. Along that line of thinking, we could have a CyberAPC variant, where CyberAPC carries a lot of troops. Because of that width, because of that length, you'd have 5 rows of troops, 5 deep. So you could fit 25 armed soldiers into this thing and be able to move troops quickly and efficiently where you need to get them. And again, with CyberTank and with CyberAPC, you could use thicker steel. And in the earlier part of the video, I talked about using thinner steel because you don't really need the bulletproofing and the structure may not be necessary. But with CyberTank and CyberAPC, maybe you go with thicker steel. Maybe you go with 6mm steel. And now you're talking about being able to stop high-powered rifle rounds. Maybe able to stop 50 caliber. Maybe 338 Lapua. Still not going to be able to stop cannon fire, but because of the extra strength and because it's going to be much lighter than a typical tank or a typical APC, this thing's going to be nimble, it's going to get around. You'll be able to have more of them in the field. Very interesting option, kind of cool. And then there's always the idea that CyberTank runs, and you could use smaller versions for this purpose as well. CyberTank runs autonomously. That's when we get into the scary idea of autonomous drone tanks on the battlefield, which maybe we would, the ethics of that, we don't want to get into that. That's just, wild thinking for a hopefully fun, maybe a little scary idea for this video. 2 other things worth mentioning about the CyberTank and CyberAPC platform is we talk about them being bulletproof, and you've got to remember there are angles here. So when somebody's shooting a bullet perpendicular to the plane of the armor or the plate steel or whatever you're shooting at, that's where it's easiest to penetrate. A lot of times when you're shooting at Cybertruck in battle, or in some situation where you're trying to be safe, or CyberTank, whatever, if it's sloped like this, you have that sloped platform, the hood that goes all the way up to the top of the triangle. If bullets are coming this way, they're a lot more likely to skip off. It's not as solid of a hit. Same thing with the side. If you're hitting at this angle, it's much harder for bullets to penetrate. So there's a very, very interesting in terms of the bulletproofing. The other thing, if you'll notice with the CyberTank design, is I took away the windows. You have cameras. It's easy to put high strength glass or similar, armor glass or similar Lexan on top of cameras because that's a small amount of space. And you would not need to have a windshield. You would not need to have windows because you just use cameras, and the operator inside, if there is one, will be able to see with the cameras. So very big advantages for CyberTank, CyberAPC. Easier construction because you're not worrying about fitting glass in there. This could be a really remarkable concept. And again, the angles make it even more easy to defend itself, make it harder for people shooting at it to penetrate. The last idea, and this is maybe the most fun, is CyberBike. So you take the Cybertruck concept and you shrink it down to roughly the size of a Harley-Davidson motorcycle, but maybe narrower. So you have maybe 80 inches long, maybe it's 24 inches wide, so it's really narrow. You might be able to tinker with this to make it even more aerodynamic. This is just a fun concept of how you could use the Cybertruck platform. And keep in mind, with vehicle autonomy, with the autonomous driving, just one more step for the vehicle to handle riding on two wheels and being able to be stable on that platform. But with this kind of platform, with a dual motor version of this, and the incredible lightweight, again, with this one you wouldn't need to go with 3mm steel. You might be able to go down to 2mm or even thinner, and you'd see this thing being really lightweight and be able to be really fast. Among the fastest bikes out there, maybe faster than any bike out there. Be really fun to see this baby in action. CyberBike, let's see it happen. Elon, make it happen. What ideas do you have for cyber platform that you think could be useful, that you think would be fun? Tell me in the comments. Let me know what other platforms you could see making this work. Keep in mind, I think it's got to have the triangle. If you think it doesn't need the triangle, what would you do? Do you think these ideas are too crazy? Let me know. And of course, hit the subscribe button, and thank you very much for watching.